Caleb Williams.
Welcome in, everyone, to Barely Educated. We are here to, I won't say preview, because I don't think we're that professional of an operation, but here to talk about the NFL draft. We're 2 weeks out. Chris, how are you?
Doing all right in the end of the semester crunch. I'm sure you know how that feels, but hanging in there, Yeah.
Yeah, my crunch is into semester, plus the first book's deadline is May 1st. It's like, oh man. It's the images, man. The images are what's getting me. I can get the writing done. That's not the tricky part. Anyway, nobody cares about that. I am back in Nashville.
All right.
You are still in Kansas.
Oh no.
Yes.
We have not recorded since I was in Egypt.
Right.
Because, well, it's mostly just been an echo chamber of bad faith takes and a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
We'll kind of cover some of that. I don't really want to even give most of that a platform, honestly. But first, we'll get into the draft. But first, I have to give a congrats to my cousin Dan.
Cousin Dan.
On the birth of his second child, baby Luca.
Baby Luca. Congrats, cousin Dan.
There we go. So yeah, adorable. Looks like Dan. Dan has the baby face, so I think it's cheating that the babies all look like him, but we'll let that go. And I want to say congrats to Luca, because I think Luca is going to have been born the same month that the Bears finally get off the quarterback schneid. So I will always remember you for this, Luca.
Don't jinx it.
No, I'll even remember when your birthday is. No pressure, kid.
Yeah, none at all. Yeah,
that's my segue into Caleb Williams.
I'm going to refer to him as future listener Luca. But yeah,
future listener Luca. Okay, you know what? He might be listening now, for all we know. Like he could be in the car, just kind of trapped, having to listen.
Poor kid. No. Congrats to your cousin Dan. That's awesome, and his family. So yeah, that's wonderful.
Yep, mom and baby are doing well. I should not bury the lead. Everybody's good. Was born Tuesday. We're recording as usual late Friday morning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, congrats to all of them, Dan and Brittany. Way to be. Yeah. Now we have a draft to talk about.
Draft. Yeah, I'm almost a week ahead of myself. I thought it was next week, but it's 2 weeks away. Yeah. So.
Yeah. We have to do this now because I have a conference next week anyway, so this works better.
Yeah, okay. Plus, there's really
as long as nothing crazy happens.
There's not going to be that much more to, nothing's happening before then. Although, we are seeing and hearing the random, makes no sense quarterback position switching in the draft. It's like, hey, maybe J.J. McCarthy has shown us something since the championship game. So, it happens every year.
Yes. But, the annual tradition of overthinking all the prospects.
Yes.
For the most part. This week it was Caleb Williams hasn't faced adversity. And then he actually clapped back and was like, let's define adversity, and then went through like 3 things. And I'm just like, what are we doing? Is that all we got left to talk about? Can I just, on that one, you don't get to judge whether someone else has faced adversity.
Yeah.
Like, it's not up to you whether they went through something hard to them.
Yeah.
Some things are universally, obviously, a form of adversity, right? Like a death of a family member, a pet, whatever, those kind of things, a car wreck. There's 100 things that we could say, oh yeah, that's adversity to anybody. But otherwise, you also have to admit that it's subjective. And I think it's like, I guess we're in the paralysis analysis phase where we're just like uncovering every little stone, and everybody that has a platform where they have to give multiple interviews a week or they are on ESPN every day are out of really anything insightful to say, and it's mostly just nonsense. Thanks for listening, everyone. No, but I'm just really tired of it, especially the former QBs, right? The guys that were like the journeymen who have made the videos for a while, and I've referenced them quite a bit. Yeah. And I like a lot of their content, but a lot of them are just like Dan Orlovsky was like, yeah, well, I never said he should go to the Bears. And then people are like retweeting the tweet where he did, because he's all like, they should pick Jaden Daniels. It's like, what are we doing? You tweeted it. You could look it up.
Yeah, it's gotten to the
So I think the narrative gets old. The discourse gets old at this time of year.
Agreed, 100%. I have not really tuned into much sports talk at all in the last, pretty much since March Madness started. And there's just been nothing new to talk about, and yeah, I don't want to look for like, well, what angle has somebody not found yet to talk about this? It's every angle's been covered. There's nothing left unless
Yeah,
you
and if that's your angle, it's probably a bad one, and I'm not
right.
here to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the one thing that has come out as a thing to consume, right? A piece of media that is definitely worth everyone's time. If you have The Athletic, The Beast is out. Dane Brugler's annual PDF of the draft. It's easily the best coverage. It's comprehensive. He tells stories about things about their families and, how they grew up and when they started playing and all these things. And he has a lot of really juicy nuggets about Caleb Williams there because we can go ahead and just basically say he's going to be the pick.
Yep.
Um, when he was in fifth grade, they concocted this plan for him to play quarterback, and he would work out from 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. and then again after school. So, I mean, he has legitimately been basically committing his entire life to this, which is probably no surprise on an obvious level. All the pro athletes have committed their lives to the sport, but that seems like a pretty interesting, a little bit beyond the normal commitment level there. And then he has this nugget that I wanted to share. He did not throw an interception on third or fourth down at USC. That's 199 pass attempts.
Wait, never?
No interceptions on third or fourth down at USC over the 2 years he was at USC.
Wow. That's a
What
thing.
is one of the biggest problems that Justin Fields, the Bear, had?
Yeah.
Passing when it counted the most, when they knew they were passing,
hmm
i.e., third, fourth down, and fourth quarter. So I was just like, wow, that's pretty crazy.
That's
And
yeah.
then let me read the summary, and then we move off from the beast. A 2 year starter at USC, Williams was a playmaking quarterback in Lincoln Riley's RPO spread scheme with air raid concepts and heavy play action. They actually did play action 38.5%. So Fleece will love
Oh yeah.
cranking up that play action too. One of the most decorated and productive players in UFC's rich football history, sets a bunch of records for the school, etc., etc. Accounted for more plays of 20 plus yards and 50 plus yards than any college player over the last 2 seasons. So he had 134 20 plus yard plays and 20 50 plus yard plays.
Oh man.
What makes him special is his poise and mobility to masterfully buy time and create second chance plays, although he tends to be overconfident in his ability to find answers among the chaos. He led the FBS in touchdowns, 120, and wow plays over the last 3 years, but also led the country in fumbles, and he cites 33. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
Over that same time span, needs to take better care of the ball. Overall, Williams needs to be more consistent working on schedule from the pocket, but you live with the hiccups because the positives are special with his dynamic passing skills and instinctive ability to create. Though stylistically, he is like a really impressive karaoke style version of Patrick Mahomes, he is truly unique as a playmaker. Number one on the best draft analysts board and future Chicago Bears QB,
Mm.
Caleb Williams. So, and there's also a weaknesses section. I'm just not going to read the whole thing in the interest of time. It's all the major things like, are the fumbles a problem? Is he trying too hard to play hero? Did he not go to the first read too often? Those kind of things I think are coaching points. But I want to point out that this 33 fumbles thing, everybody cites that number. But I saw Robert Schmidt, I think is who did it. Somebody had, I think it was him, had a tweet. Maybe it was, Aaron Lemon or one of these other like pseudo professional guys that covers the Bears. They do a ton of work. They actually work harder than the pros, a lot of them. And he's like, this does not do justice to Caleb because it doesn't account for bad snaps. They're just all fumbles tallied to him. But I think it was actually 17 were his, and there were 16 of them over the 2 years that were bad snaps too.
So about
So
half.
you could say how bad a snap, right? Yeah. So like, I think that number needs more context than it's getting. But that is probably the biggest thing to coach out of him is the way he kind of holds the ball down at his hip sometimes. Everything else is pretty excellent as we learned over the last couple months. He checked the character boxes just fine. Bears brass seems to love him. And I don't know why Bears fans aren't more excited.
Yeah.
He's getting comped to these all-timers. Let's be excited. If you can't be excited about this, why are you following football?
couple thoughts on that. Is it just the cynicism of having been burned again and again and again by the promise of a good quarterback? How much is that? How much?
Probably. I mean, I am the Bears nihilism guy, but
And Fields was
and
loved.
I will say if they screw him up too when he's like compared to all the great prospects in the last 20 years, then yeah, you're like stupid franchise. You know, like it would be a big blow. But I still think if we can't be thrilled that this is going to be their quarterback, then what's the point of doing any of this fan stuff?
He is the chosen one.
Yeah, that's true. And I think a
Right,
lot.
right. The Bears have definitely earned cynicism over the years,
Right.
but none of that has anything to do with this regime and this player.
Yeah, you can't be superstitious about it. Yeah, absolutely. Just because Mitch didn't work out and Justin didn't work out has nothing to do with Caleb not working out. And shout out to my friend Bob back home.
Bob back home.
Bob back home, Chicago Bob.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob. How are you, Bob?
Oh man, it's a Bob and everything. This is just
He is a
beautiful.
Bob. Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's a Bob in every.
83.
Yes. That
He's a Bob in every way.
that when when
King Bob.
when Meatball Bob, when Mitch left the Bears, he was bad, and then Fields
Yep.
didn't get a starting job, which still surprises me.
Because the league thinks he's not that good.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's not that the Bears let them down. Maybe they just weren't good after all, and it just took time for that to be solidified. I thought maybe Mitch was going to be good when he left. Like, I thought Nagy hampered him, but maybe not. Maybe Nagy got the most he could possibly out of Mitch.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe Nagy did more than we realized.
What?
For Mitch or something. That was just a
Mm.
frustrating era in a lot of ways because it
Yeah.
seemed like they should be better than they were and all these other things.
I'm not an idiot.
But Fields is exciting because of the things he's good at, but it's like so rare that you get to use that, like breakaway speed and deep ball accuracy.
Mhm.
Since he's bad at the other 80% of the position, the league wasn't that interested. And I hate saying it. You know,
Yeah.
we know we all defended Fields,
Yep.
but watch his drop back, watch his release. It's like everything, it's like he's in a swimming pool. You know, like when you play basketball in a pool and everything's like slower than you're used to. And then you watch him just take off and run, and you're like, oh, okay, how is your drop back take so long when you can do that?
Mm.
Right. And then just the really kind of long release. You know, all the screens we all hated that Getsy kept calling that would be bad. Getsy calling him too much is a Getsy problem. The fact that they can't run it is also a Fields problem because he doesn't get the ball over there quick enough.
Mm.
And then it doesn't fool anybody. So, like, the league's told you what they thought of these QBs over the last few years for Mitch and this year for Fields. And that's a great point. The Bears actually are in a different situation now. I think part of that is the person of Williams, which has gotten all this attention because people are like, oh, he's brash and he's flamboyant and they don't like this and they don't like that. And I'm like, bring it on. We've tried the "aw shucks, I'm so nice, let me date your daughter" quarterbacks. Bring on the guy that's more like Rodgers and just doesn't care, and he's going to fire back at bad takes, and he's going to retweet you, and he's going to engage, and he's not insecure. I mean, we've had Mitch want the TVs turned off. We had Justin get up there, blast the coordinator, which we all liked,
Yeah.
and then 2 hours later apologize for it. They need an attitude adjustment. I'd give me the cocky quarterback. This franchise desperately needs to rethink these things. And if that's what this takes, sign me up. I just hope he's not a conspiracy loon.
Yeah.
But I actually think part of the problem for Mitch and Justin is they were too nice for the gig.
Maybe.
I wonder about it anyway. Like a lot of the great ones got that chip the size of a mountain on their shoulder. And it's wild that we have to say this in the city of Michael Jordan.
Well, that and who's the most beloved Bears quarterback in our lifetime? Who's the only one who won a Super Bowl?
McMahon or Cutler.
Yeah, Jim McMahon.
Okay, so McMahon.
People love McMahon because he
Yeah.
was the punky QB and he mooned the helicopters and he wore the Roselle headband and he would argue with Ditka on the sideline.
Yeah.
And he wore his sunglasses and all that. And he was, you had the straight-laced Joe Montana and the quick release Dan Marino who could, throw 5,000 yards. But Jim McMahon was our guy because he was just a bad you know what and had that attitude. So it is ironic that now Bears fans are pushing back against the
Well, some of them, yeah.
The vocal ones. The vocal ones. Yeah.
It's a very vocal group online, at least. And I think it's funny because, you had the ridiculous reactions about Fields before he was even traded, where it's like, gosh, you guys are way more attached than you should be to a football player. But
That was weird.
now it's going to be funny because if Williams is good, everyone's going to love the personality. They're going to love the bravado.
Yes.
You know how badly I won a game where he goes up to Green Bay in a year or two or something, and he's won a couple in a row against them, and he does the championship belt, and he says something like ownership is transferred or something. Just give me all the sass.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead,
Right
man.
there.
Be a jerk. Rub it in. Let us have the QB who can do that for once.
100% with you there.
And all that to say, I don't actually think he's a bad guy. He started his own charity for underprivileged kids. He's given I don't know how much to it, but it's like people are acting like he's this like terrible person. I just like that he's got a little swagger because we've always got these all shucks guys, and it never works there either.
Time for something different.
But mostly, I think everybody's overreacting too. Beyond that, okay, so that's your future quarterback. The real juicy part of this draft, I think, in terms of intrigue for the Bears, is what they do at 9.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing to have 2 top 10 picks. Let's also throw a quick bouquet to the GM there. That was an all-time ripoff. And they don't have a ton of capital, but they have high end. I mean, they have capital because they have 2 high picks, but they don't have a lot of picks. Also, it's considered to be a weak draft at the end because of COVID.
Yes, good content.
And so this is a great draft to not have a ton of later picks.
Right.
So that kind of is interesting. And I wonder if Pulls did that on purpose or we just kind of lucked into that. And then they have 11 next year. So that's something to keep in mind as we see how he maneuvers. 11 next year.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've heard that too, that it's not a very deep draft. So is it better to just go with the 4 that you got? Because I think it's 4 in the top 4 rounds, I think, or 5 rounds.
Yeah, they're all. It's their own first, of course, the Carolina first, their own third, and the Philly 4th from the Jalen Carter thing, right?
Okay.
And then they use their own 4th to get Keenan Allen,
which is still amazing.
So we should run through it. You got Caleb Williams, whatever they do at 9, Montez Sweat, whatever they do at 75, Keenan Allen, and Ryan, what's that guy's name from the Bills? Bates. Is it Bates?
The lineman, yeah.
No, the guy they wanted a couple of years ago. Yeah. So like they've already used 3 of the picks on presumable starters. I mean, one's their star defensive player, one's a definite starting receiver, and Bates will be in the mix, right? So like that's how he chose to use the assets this year, which I'm all for in spots. If you did it every year, you'd eventually have real problems with your roster getting too old and stuff like that. But when we analyze this draft, we have to remember those trades. So then you don't, there's no predicting 75. And I know people do mocks that deep. I just think that's silly. Maybe after this, the second round, you can get a sense of what he might do because of who's left. But I want to spend some time on 9 because that's pretty juicy.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good to me. Because of the fact that there's no later picks or they think that it's not a deep draft and the Bears don't have later picks. Conventional wisdom, I would have thought in the past that, you're going to trade 9 to get more picks along the way, especially because they don't have a second round pick and only 4 total overall. Maybe they'll get more. But now I don't think so based on what you brought up. I think they're going to draft someone at number 9, and I can't imagine they trade a 4th later, but maybe we'll see, or 3rd later. So I think they're just going to use.
You could trade a 3rd and pick up another 4th and have 3 in the 4th, or pick up 2 4ths for the 3rd or something. I don't know.
I think that
at 9, I think your scenarios are wide receiver if one falls, tackle if you don't know about Braxton Jones or they want to just have 2 bookends, defensive line, which could be either 3 tech or edge in my opinion, or trade back. Okay. Those are the 4 scenarios. I have pretty strong feelings about that, each of them. Number 1 point for me is a philosophical point. The depth on this roster has improved great deal in the last 18 months or whatever.
Yes.
It still needs stars.
Mm.
So if a potential star is there, I stay put and pick the star. So like if I'm Ryan Poles and I have a blue chip or two left on the board and only one or two left, I'm not going to risk the trade back. If they're all gone, then I'm considering it much stronger, the trade back. Number two on the philosophical points. I am not just drafting for the 24 season. And I think that's colored a lot of the discussion that I've caught, even though we haven't listened as much as we mentioned. I still listened a bit, and I've definitely followed on Twitter. And I think too many people are like, oh, they need this for this year. It's like, yeah, they do. But in the top 10, I don't want him thinking that way.
Right.
So with those 2 points in mind, I am sprinting to the podium if one of the three receivers at the top of the draft is left. Even though edge is a bigger need. Because the players matter. That's the third philosophical point, not just position. Rome Odunze is a better prospect than anybody that plays edge in this draft. And I would love to pair him for 10 years with my newly drafted quarterback.
Yes, that would be nice.
I would totally understand if he goes D-line instead. And I'll understand especially if there's a trade back because the receivers are gone. But I would not pick tackle unless Joe Alt falls, and he's not going to. And I would not trade up for a tackle. So I think tackle is like Hogan Johns did this huge episode with Fishbane this week about the three scenarios for the positions we mentioned. And they ended up concluding D-line is first, then tackle, then receiver. And I'm like, guys, tackle is not a bigger need than receiver unless you extend Keenan Allen between now and the draft, who, by the way, always misses a few games. You absolutely need a young star at wide receiver. You're paper thin and very top heavy.
Yep.
And Braxton Jones is a serviceable young tackle on the cheap. He's also a nice feather in the GM's cap right now. Again, different conversation. If the best tackle, Joe Alt, is there, you're like, boy, that's tempting. So I would go with the receiver because I just picked Caleb Williams and I want the long term.
Yep. And best player available, I think, is always wiser than drafting for positional need. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
But if they trade down and pick the 3-tech Byron Murphy out of Texas, or they trade down and pick Jared Verse, I'm totally fine with that because you get another asset. It's just my preference would be stay and pick a receiver. Now, what if all the receivers are gone? You try to trade down.
I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, different story. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, they definitely need somebody to come up for the other QB, right? Like McCarthy has to entice a team to come up.
Oh, yeah. The top 4 picks are going to be quarterbacks. They just will.
Unless Arizona stays, and then it's 4 out of the 5. So the idea is 4 QBs and Harrison are the top 5, right?
Yes.
And then the Giants, they're another. But 4, 5, and 6 are trade down candidates for sure. Then you have the Giants probably pick a receiver if they stay. They're at 6. Almost everyone has the Titans picking Alt, which makes sense. They spent big on receiver, and they have a good guard next to him, and they need to protect a second-year quarterback. And then Atlanta needs a pass rusher as bad as anybody in the league. They got a lot of stuff on offense and very mediocre edge rushers, which would fit the Bears would then be sitting there with the third receiver in a really good receiver draft, which normally you may be like, I don't know if I want to do the third receiver in the top 10. And I think you do in this case.
I got a couple of mock drafts here. You want me to
sure
what you said about what I've got here? Yeah. The first one I got here is from CBS.com, CBSSports.com. Number 1, they have the Bears taking Caleb Williams. Go figure. Then 3 more quarterbacks.
Agreed.
Yeah. And just like you were saying, they have a receiver falling to number 9 for the Bears. They have Rome Odunze. And the Bears taking him at
basically what I just laid out.
Exactly what you just laid out. Yeah. So
I endorse this mock.
And you have him, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore all together for your rookie quarterback in this offensive-driven league, this league that caters to passing the ball more and more downfield. Absolutely, I would like that. All right, the NBC Sports Chicago. This one I got some questions about here. The Bears taking Williams at 1. Have you seen it? Have you seen this one or?
No, it's just I mean that's carry on, just keep going. That
Okay,
doesn't
all right.
surprise me. I'll say that.
They have quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3, and then the Cardinals sitting there and taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Then the Vikings trading with the Chargers to get J.J. McCarthy. The Giants taking
Yeah,
Nate
one of the big theories.
from
Hmm.
LSU. Alt going to the Titans. Dallas
Hmm.
Turner going to the Falcons, and then the Bears trading to the with the Eagles at number 9. And then the Eagles pick comes in a little bit later in the first round. And long story short, they have the Bears trading down twice in the first round.
No.
And then
Blech.
with the
They
28th
need
pick,
stars.
at the 28th pick, they have the Bears taking Chop Robinson from Penn State. Have you even heard of Chop Robinson? That's a nickname.
Yeah, he's the guy that lit up the combine. An all-timer name though. I mean, I could definitely be talked into rooting for Chop Robinson, the name.
I
But I
suppose
don't want to
so.
pick him when I could have stayed put and picked a more polished prospect. He's an all tools, not enough production guy.
Okay. And I'm scared about picking guys based on the combine only, that
How many edge rushers have failed that had like the freakish athletic traits but didn't
hmm
have any polish? I don't like this one at all.
Yep.
But if you traded down and picked up the best three tech Murphy or the second best edge in the 14 or something range, I could be okay with that.
Mm.
I just feel like at some point though, you have to get stars. I'm gonna keep saying it because I just think you have Sweat, Johnson, DJ Moore, and a bunch of guys that maybe will get there. You hope. Like you hope, obviously, that Caleb Williams is one. You hope Darnell Wright continues. I think he will. But this is not a top-heavy, star-laden team right now. And you got two picks in the top 10. I think you need to come away with two stars.
Yep. The last mock I got here is Pro Football Focus. And just to save time, they also have Roma Dunze falling down to number 9 and the Bears taking him at 9. So I thought it was ironic that, and I didn't do a thorough dive into this, but why is the Chicago mock draft the dumbest one? you know, like
I
come
think you
on,
know.
guys. I guess so. But if it happened that way, where Romo Dunze falls to number 9, sign me up. Absolutely.
So another big picture point that I think is really important. First person I heard mention this was Cousin Nate.
Cousin Nate, long time ago.
There, you didn't think I was going to leave you out, Cousin Nate. I mean,
Never.
Cousin Dan got all the love at the beginning, but there were reasons. Okay.
Yes.
He pointed out he's staunchly wide receiver, basically, but also tackle if alt fell, because how many more resources does our defensive head coach need to be spent on his defense? It is already huge money to Sweat and a second round pick, big money to Jalen Johnson, big money to one of the two linebackers, medium money to the other one, which they were fine signings. That's not the point.
Mm-hmm.
Two second round picks in the secondary, three second round picks in the secondary, excuse me, a second round pick on the D line, a third round pick on the D line. Like, all we really did is the DJ Moore trade and Darnell Wright as far as premium offense assets prior to this year.
Yes.
Keenan Allen didn't cost a premium asset. Oh, you have to pay him. And if they extend him, that'll be a different story. Obviously, Caleb Williams will be spending a premium asset, but his point I think is a good one. Like, not just because you want to build around Caleb, though that's part of it, of course, but you shouldn't need to keep investing in the defense at this level. We all know pass rusher and three tech are glaring needs, but I think he's right. Like, at some point, you'll have to get creative there, and your defensive coach should be able to make the defense work with what he's been given.
Yeah, there's plenty there. Plenty there.
Or you could go sign Calais Campbell to play opposite Sweat, and you'd be fine for a year. There's ways to get around it that don't require you to draft one.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things they could do at 9 that I'd still like. I would just have a preference. Last thing I want to mention. A lot of people talking trade down. We've been talking about it. The Chicago Sports, NBC Chicago, whatever, one did it. It
Twice.
does take two to tango. And I don't 100% know, maybe, but if 4 QBs are already gone, does somebody want to trade up to 9 still? For the 5th QB? Or who are they trading up for? A receiver? Wait, why aren't we just taking the receiver?
Yeah.
Are they trading up for Michael Penix?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Not to 9, right? Like,
No, not
wouldn't
that
you
high.
just wait for him to come to you if you're the Raiders or whatever? Like, I wouldn't be that aggressive there. So I don't honestly know that we can sit here and say, oh, that there's a trade, they should do it, because it depends on what it is, and I don't know that there's even going to be one.
Hmm. Yeah, good point.
You never know. How could you predict it? I just pointing out, if he doesn't trade, it doesn't mean he didn't want to. There's a lot of didn'ts and doesn't in there.
Yeah.
But
I think
I would pick the blue chip player.
and I think you're right. The only scenario where that happens is if all three of those receivers are gone by number 9. And with the 4 quarterbacks, I just don't see all three of them being gone as well. But if they are, maybe one of those defensive linemen or the tackle, like you said, if he's there, alt. But yeah,
All right, let me put you on the spot. Okay, I went through my scenario. What's your pick at 9? Like, give me your top, I don't know, 3 to 5 list of what you want. Like, do you want receiver first or edge or trade or what?
receiver, edge after that, and then trade would be my third option.
Okay, so you don't want a tackle unless it's because you
No,
traded down and you get that good value there. Like,
right.
you wouldn't want one at 9, because I really don't think the guys at 9 are good enough. Alt won't be there, and the
Yeah,
other
and
guys I wouldn't pick at 9.
the line it will be okay. It won't be a great line, but I am confident that it'll be a solid line, and that Braxton Jones is he's a good left tackle. So I'm okay with the line as is, except for center, as long as center's better than last year.
Well, they've got Bates, and they signed the guy from the Rams who I always forget the name of.
I just
So
want to see it.
they've addressed
See it.
the depth there. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
I want to see.
mid-round center. I would love a mid-round center. Get me one in the third. Get
I've
a
been
young
hurt
center
too
to
often.
develop.
Yeah.
They've been bad there forever.
Yeah.
And if they had a second rounder, it would be perfect. So you could say, well, there's your maybe my second vote is something like receivers first, trade down to like 13 or 14, still get the second best D lineman, let's say, but pick up a second or a third that I can use on a center. You know, you can talk me into that.
Yeah.
But it's still not higher than blue chip star to pair with Williams for me.
Yeah, and it's not like the Bears have to choose between a bad line or drafting a tackle to fix a bad line or drafting a wide receiver. I think of the Bengals a few years ago. You know, they had the option.
Like the little stick figure meme where everyone's like,
Yeah,
the quarterback can't throw the ball because they drafted the receiver, but if you draft the tackle, they can throw the ball to some lesser receiver. The Bears are not actually in that situation.
no, they're not, and I don't. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that meme anyway. So, but yeah,
It was funny for a while.
the Bengals had the option of taking who the Lions ended up getting. What is his name? My name always
Penei
blanks.
Sewell.
Thank you, Sewell. Yeah.
Penei Sewell. Mhm.
Or they could have taken Chase, Jamar Chase. They went with Jamar Chase for the playmaker.
And then Jefferson this week is like, I'm jealous they get to play together.
Yeah.
Saw that story because they're all teammates in college.
Yeah.
All right, I had one last thing.
Yeah.
I just have to point this out because I find it hilarious and I love the player involved, so I'm not trying to pick on him. Jalen Johnson changed his number to number
1.
1. All the defending of Fields. Fields is gone. Ooh, I'm gonna take his number. That just kills me.
Yeah, and he was one
Not
of
that he's not allowed to.
Yeah,
You know, it's just funny to me.
but he was a big supporter of Justin and in his corner. And yeah, you're right. And they're professionals. You know, it's like, oh dang, he's gone. That sucks. I'm gonna take his number.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny.
It is funny. That's very funny.
And he was number 1 in college, so he's got that reasoning. But
Okay, all right. Yeah.
anyway. All right, take us out of here, sir.
Thank you guys for listening to Barely Educated. We will probably not do another show until after the draft, but we'll let you know for sure. Just 2 weeks away. Send us.
I forgot. Wait.
Oh!
I am off to Pittsburgh next week, home of QB2. So I just wanted everyone to know that I'm still following him.
Say hi
around,
to him.
apparently.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
That's all right. You know,
That's not worth interrupting.
next week I'll be in Pittsburgh, Kansas for a day. So that's sort of like going to Pittsburgh, except it's Pittsburgh.
Probably very similar.
Probably. I had no idea there was a Pittsburgh, Kansas. Anyway, I'm judging a music festival there. Anyway, Send us an email, barelyeducatedpod@gmail.com. Visit our website to join our honor roll at buymeacoffee.com/barely_educated. We're on Twitter at the same handle, Threads at the same handle, Instagram at the same handle. We will talk to you next time. Bear down.
You're fired.
You are in command now.
Caleb Williams.
We will watch your career with great interest.
He is the chosen one.
I hope so. I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
I love the Bears.